there's a lot to be said about the drone strikes in Pakistan. So I'll give like a factual background of what's been going on there, and then just talk a little bit about the nature of the U.S.-Pakistan relationship and how the drone strikes fit into that really fraught relationship, and also how the drone strikes have impacted politics in Pakistan. And then if people want, I can talk about the legal issues, because that's been a sort of central way in which activists have, both in the U.S. and in Pakistan, have tried to address the issue, but it's also been claimed by neoconservatives to sort of argue that this is legal, and so that's one place where the debates have been taking place. So I'll sort of maybe keep that for Q&A if people have questions, because there's a lot to talk about just sort of factually.
Could you talk closer to the mic, please?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear it?
It's not for sound.
It's not for sound.
It's not for sound, sorry, there's no sound. This is just to record, so you have to talk louder.
Okay, I'll try to talk louder. Okay.
Well, so, Oren, why don't you move up here? Yeah. Anybody who has trouble hearing, there's a couple of seats that work.
When the mountain came kind of a holler, I had to go to the mountain.
So just to preface the discussion, on both the U.S. side and the Pakistan side, drone strikes are mired in a lot of opacities behind veils. For example, the U.S. government has yet to acknowledge officially that we have a drone program. John Brennan, ACLU director Ben Weisner, asked John Brennan in a very cheeky way, so does the U.S. have a drone program? And he said, no, we don't have a drone program. But if we did have a drone program, we would do it with the utmost precision and the utmost care. Chuckling, And so we know, Weisner said, yeah, we don't have a drone program, but we just read about it in the newspapers every day. So, the secrecy has reached a level of absurdity, right? And the government sort of takes pleasure in being able to play with its privilege and having the secrecy. And on the Pakistan side, the Pakistani government continues to say that we have not authorized these drone strikes, where in fact it's clear that it has been authorized. So, and secondly, the drone strikes in Pakistan take place in the northwest frontier province, right, in a place which borders Afghanistan. Very hard to access, and so when people say, we have direct experience with the war there, that should be taken with a grain of salt, because I've never been to Waziristan. Most people who are actually talking about drone strikes have not been to Waziristan, because the government doesn't allow you to go. You need a pass, and if it's not a friendly place, and so all of the accounts that we have right now are secondhand accounts. Even the lawyers that are suing the CIA only know this information 1 degree, 2 degrees of separation. So that's just an important thing to remember, and to sort of and I think that's sort of what we have to have in the back of our minds whenever we hear any government account of what's going on. So just in general, the strikes have started in 2004 in Pakistan, but escalated significantly under the Obama administration. Starting in 2008, there have been 253 drone strikes in Pakistan under Obama alone. The deadliest month was in September of 2010, and I don't know if people remember, but in August of 2010, Pakistan suffered one of the worst floods in history. A flood covering the size of the eastern U.S. seaboard took place. 20 million people displaced at the time, covering a fifth of the country, and that was the deadliest month of the drone strikes. There was one nearly every single day. That alone just sort of, shows just sort of the sheer cruelty of the U.S.'s foreign policy and the Pakistani government for permitting this when people are really suffering on a large scale. So in terms of estimates of death, anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 people have died. The U.S. claims that these are militants. Most of them are low-level militants, and the CIA distinguishes two kinds of strikes. There's signature strikes, and then there are personality strikes. Signature strikes are, they think the person may or may not be, think that person is involved somehow in terrorist activities. And you have personality strikes where the intelligence knows the exact person, their name, what group they're involved in. but the vast majority of strikes are just signature strikes. And there was a recent Wall Street Journal report a couple of months ago, which basically said that most of the times that the pilots are launching the missiles, they do not have a precise idea of who that person is. They don't have a name, right? So we should really consider what intelligence means under those circumstances, right? If these are militants, I mean, how are we designating these militants to begin with? And so the groups allegedly targeted, include the Tehreek-e-Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and the Haqqani network. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is the Pakistan Taliban. Haqqani network is a non-Taliban group, and then Al-Qaeda, we are all familiar with those groups. And this is what the U.S. claims. And of course, in November of 2011, 2 journalists from the Bureau of Investigative Journalists went and paid a visit in Waziristan and saw that in one strike, the U.S. reported that militants had been killed, where in fact one 16-year-old and one 13-year-old boy had been killed. And so these are just a few examples of how problematic the U.S.'s accounts of these strikes is. People have, as Nick said, these hover for 24 hours during the day. They emit a really horrible sound. People in Waziristan, where a lot of the strikes take place, have resorted to taking sleeping pills in order to cope with the noise, and just these are called thunder. The word in Urdu is bangbara, so there's a name for this, and people have had to adapt to just the constant threat of surveillance and of death. So, how are we doing on time? Okay, you're good. Okay. So just to talk a little bit about how the Pakistan government has permitted this to take place. So in 2007, the military dictator who had been in power since 1999 stepped down, and he authorized the beginning of these drone strikes. And then power was passed on to a civilian government, and nominally democratic, and they have continuously allowed the strikes to go on. The WikiLeaks cable, the diplomatic cables reveal that part of this agreement was that the civilian government would, in public, say that they have not given permission to the strikes, but obviously, there's diplomatic cables revealing that the ambassador is talking to the president of Pakistan and saying, yeah, I mean, these will go on, and we'll just have to, shake our head and say that we didn't allow it, but of course we've allowed it, and that's just part of the bargain, because it's politically too costly in Pakistan to allow these strikes to go on. Ever since 9/11, there's been a strong anti-American sentiment in Pakistan, and so permitting these strikes is, to say that the government has permitted the strikes is just very politically costly. And what this allows is that the Pakistani government passes the buck. It says, oh no, we haven't permitted this. This is, Uncle Sam who has imposed this upon us. And so they are absolved of responsibility, right? Meanwhile, the U.S. is operating under, is not acknowledging that these actually take place, is saying that the Pakistan government has given them permission. And so who to hold accountable, who are we supposed to hold accountable? Because both governments are, shifting blame upon each other. The U.S. government doesn't deal with the civilian government to get permission for this. It deals with elements within the military. It's just more convenient for the U.S. government to be dealing with elements within the military because of the strong role the military has always played in Pakistan in making strategic decisions. And so, talk of democracy and all that, we all know that is just, empty rhetoric. And, these, obviously, there is, these strikes are, trying to get rid of militancy in Pakistan, but it's very clear that these are not in any way getting rid of the core reasons for why militancy, insurgency has risen in Pakistan. It's the war in Afghanistan has allowed these groups to flourish. It is class struggle. It is a region of Pakistan that has been historically, since Pakistan was created, completely isolated. There are laws are completely different. Collective punishment is still permitted in those parts of Pakistan. So the militant groups have essentially been able to exploit to a certain extent the legal vacuum, the governance vacuum. But to say that these are in any way helping, no, it's actually, these strikes are fueling the seeds for another insurgency, because people are really scared and upset about this, and understandably so. The response in Pakistan has been, the far right, the religious parties are opposed to it. The Liberal Party currently in power has obviously given permission to it. And what this has allowed, it's allowed the military to also go into these tribal regions and launch full-scale offensives in different parts where the strikes aren't taking place. And so in 2009, there was a mass offensive in a certain area called Swat of Pakistan. 800,000 people are displaced. I mean, all of these people are coming into the cities. It's heightening. I mean, the people that are being targeted are Pashto speakers, and there's ethnic tensions that result from these people coming into cities, which are primarily occupied by Punjabis and people who immigrated from India when Pakistan was formed. And so this gives, the drone strikes gives the military an excuse to use more military force to deal with alleged problems. And they're, on a daily basis, there are minor incursions, and then into these areas where people are rounded up, put into prison, killed, and then there are massive offensive where you have, hundreds of thousands of people displaced. And the U.S. is constantly pressuring the Pakistan military to keep on doing this because, Pakistan is not strong enough on terrorism. And that's one of the repeated accusations that is leveled. So, the government in the U.S. and Pakistan say that drone strikes are effective. I'm not sure what that word really means, given the deep-seated reasons for why militancy exists and the fact that these strikes don't necessarily even kill militants. We can sort of, what is it really accomplishing other than terrorizing the population and further isolating an entire population of people and giving more power to the military. So, military experts say that this has weakened, the Tehreek-e-Taliban and Afghani, those may be short-term gains, perhaps, if one can even call that, but just the level of the human cost of this has been extremely, extremely heavy, and something that, doesn't get enough attention in the media, both here and in Pakistan. There's some legal stuff as well, but I don't know if maybe we should keep that for later or for Q&A. Does that sound good? Or should I go on?
I'll keep on this time.